So we want to get into a little bit of your podcasting because that's one of your babies. That's something that you do, one of your passions. So we want to get into that a little bit. So the first thing is, in your own words, let the listeners know what the 52 Love podcast is all about.
So last year, I made a commitment to blog at least once a week. My reason for this is, as an aspiring author, you need to get yourself out in the world. You need to post something so people know that you're there and so that you can gain a following. Well, I don't love blogging, so I would put it off and do all of my other kinds of writing before I would do the blogging. I had a blog for years, and it's like I would just blog once a month and then once every other month, and you can't gain a following if you're that inconsistent. So I made a commitment. I was going to blog once per week. So I needed a topic that was going to give me enough material that I would have something to say once a week. I came up with 52 Love, which would be 52 love lessons in 52 weeks, one intimacy tip per week. And so that's what I did. I posted one tip per week. It's just a short post giving someone a tip on what they can do to improve intimacy in their committed relationship. And before the end of the year, I signed with a literary agent to work on a nonfiction project based on that blog. And then the podcast was born out of that. To increase the platform, I'm taking each of those tips again this year, bringing in a new guest each week. What I do is I give them the tip, have them try it with their partner, and then they come on the show, talk about their experience, and then they get to promote their work.
Yeah, that's definitely different. Definitely original. I think that's cool. Doing something different. You know what I mean? Like, I never heard that approach before. Definitely different. So it kind of makes you stand out. That's pretty cool.
To co-host with the And I Thought ladies last summer, they invited me to co-host a lot of their shows. And so I kind of saw their format where they would bring people on and interview them. And I kind of got used to coming up with questions and doing research on the guests. And when the suggestion for me to do a podcast for 52 Love came up, I thought I could have just me on there once a week talking about the tip, or I could show some real-life examples of how the tips could work, and then kind of expose all of these wonderful creatives that I've met on my journey to my audience so they can see, hey, there's a dancer, oh, there's a musician, hey, there's an actor, there's a filmmaker, there's an author. I've met so many amazing creatives that I thought, why not share them with the world? And then also help show it doesn't matter your race, it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your sexuality. These tips can work if you're committed to improving your intimacy with your relationship.
Nice.
Awesome. Okay. Which episode do you think stood out the most?
The one that is going to post next week. Usually we started off just doing about 15 to 20 minutes. I didn't want to put a hard time on it, and I didn't want to bore anybody. But then I was given an opportunity to add my show to a radio program in England, and they wanted a 30-minute, really they wanted an hour-long format. But if I did 30 minutes and I paired with the And I Thought ladies, then we could have that hour-long slot. So I went more to 30 minutes. Well, the one that I just recorded this Sunday that is going to be for next Monday, I was just blown away by their answers. And I'll give you a preview. Next week's tip is to vote with your partner. So it's not the most romantic tip in the world, but it is very intimate. And I learned so much about the people that it's a cop who happens to be a person of color and an infectious disease nurse who's also a writer who had a book come out last year. I'm sorry, she had a book come out this year, which means she had to turn the book in last year. So think about what last year was like for these two people. They had to deal with COVID while she's a nurse. She had gone down to only 2 days per week because she was working on her book and starting to focus more on being an author. But as an infectious disease nurse, she had to go into the hospital. Like, she can't just say, well, sorry, I'm an author now, you know. She was working so many hours, but still had to turn in her book. And her husband, like, okay, so that's the beginning of last year. But then come June, we have all the riots and the anti-cop activity, and he's also a person of color, so it's like he's on both ends of that situation, and he still has to do his job, but he also supports the protesters, and they had to find a way to take care of each other all last year, and they came out looking very strong, in my opinion. I don't think most people had quite as much to contend with in their homes last year, you know?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, give it up. I got to give it up for both of them, especially the nurse that was working with, you know, people with infectious diseases, because she was like in the war zone right there. You're around infectious people, and you have to protect yourself while protecting and taking care of them. So yeah, when everyone was on lockdown, and I saw nurses, I always showed them respect, even clapped. You know, I always showed them love because, you know, they was the ones. They was on the. To me, like, they was on the front, the battlegrounds. They was on on the front. You know, just doing their thing. So yeah, that was. And crazy.
She's also a spectacular author. Her book is The Second Life of Muriel West. Her name is Amanda Skenendor, and I absolutely recommend it to everyone.
Oh yeah. That definitely sounds good, and I'll definitely will look into that. Let me ask you this question here. What do you like most about podcasting?
Things like that, getting to learn so many new things about people I thought I already knew. She is one of my best friends. I had no idea that she and her husband had such a history of activism, that they went to the Women's March in D.C. together, and that he has, you know, even though he's a cop, he is someone who has been on the protest lines and has had to answer for that. Well, if I believe in a cause, I'm still going to speak my mind. I'm not going to do anything against the law, but I'm going to support it openly, even if some of you think that cops are bad. Well, he's not a bad cop. He's a great person, and he does what he thinks is right. I didn't know these things. Like, I know them, but I had no idea that they've been protesting and being activists for years. And then the other thing that I love about the podcast is that sometimes I'll have this tip that I've given to someone, and they take it to another level that was beyond what I even conceived. I had one person who was an absolute superstar. She kind of incorporated about 4 or 5 of the tips that I had over the year into the one tip that I gave her. So it's seeing that just because you have a good idea doesn't mean it's the end all and be all. People can adapt the idea that you gave them. It's just kind of like a prompt, and they take it and they revamp it and make it even better than what I intended.
Oh yeah, that happens a lot. That happens a lot with movies, with a lot of things. You know, it gets remade, the music, everything. You know, someone does it over, and then it's like, wow, that's even better. You know, so wow, that's what. And hats off to that officer. See, and I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people put all the police officers in the same, in the same pot, and there's different. Whether you're black, white, whatever, and I mean, he happens to be black, and yeah, he did what he did as a cop, but when he wasn't, on duty, for him to be going and protesting about what he thought was right and supporting black folks and certain things, that goes to show the type of guy he is.
It's a testament.
So,
yeah, a testament.
Right.
Testament to one's character, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, so
speaking of this, the pandemic, speaking of like the pandemic and everything, did you find podcasting to be therapeutic when the pandemic was at its peak? because we was all shut down at home, you know, couldn't do much.
I don't know that it was therapeutic, but I don't know that I needed therapy for being at home. I like being at home. It was a much-needed break because I am so active and I was on the go all the time. I'm not saying there weren't drawbacks to lockdown. There were, you know, I had a starring role in a movie and the whole production was shut down because they couldn't get the locations because it wasn't safe. I was set to star in a play as Cleopatra, and on opening night they canceled it. They wouldn't let us perform. But
wow.
Podcasting, I wouldn't say therapeutic for that because it wasn't the interaction that I was missing. It was the opportunity to perform. But it was definitely beneficial, even when I started working with the And I Thought ladies, because I was getting to meet all these new and interesting people and getting to learn from them. And every time you open yourself up to a new type of person, it helps you grow as a person, and it adds to your arsenal of information and your empathy and just your arsenal of knowledge, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
For sure. I can attest to that. Yep.
All right. So what is your objective with your guests and audience of your podcast?
Well, for the guests, I want to show them real-life examples of the tips in play and show them that, you know, sometimes the tips won't work. We did have one person where their partner refused to do the tip. It wasn't a good week for her. And he showed an excellent example of how you handle that. You are going to run into these speed bumps when you're in a relationship where you try and they don't want to try in that moment, and you need to give your partner space. And the reason that she refused was absolutely valid, but it was the next tip. So it's the one that we had to do, you know? So I want to show them that, and it was upsetting at first because it was like, man, this is the first time someone refused it. I feel like I failed. But no, the way he explained how he handled it was he showed an excellent example of what you do in that situation, which is you continue to love that person in the way they need to be loved. If you're forcing it on them, then you're not intimate, you know? Then it's just for you.
Right.
There you
That's
go.
a good point.
I totally agree. That's how you do it. Right. Yeah, some people.
The other goal for the guests. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. It's all right. I'll get back to that.
I was just saying that the other goal for the audience is to learn about all of these amazing people that I've met, and you know, expose them to different authors and different filmmakers to showcase the art. And that's kind of the same goal for the guests, which is giving them a larger audience and getting their name out there more, that kind of thing. But also giving them a really fun experience, I hope, something that's beneficial for their relationship.
Yeah, I would say, you know, what you do is awesome because you're giving a platform for people to share their skills, their talents, and abilities. So, you know, so you definitely deserve a round of applause too for that.
Oh, thank you.
You know, anytime you put out a good platform to share the arts and people, talent and skills and abilities, that's always good. You know, whoever's doing it, that's always good. I love that. So.
Well, I've had really good examples, and all I can take credit for is being smart enough to follow their example.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah, no doubt. That's what's up. So, name your favorite podcast that you currently listen to.
Genuine Chit Chat with Mike Burton.
Okay.
He brings his whole thing is he brings on interesting people, and he just has interesting guests, and they have interesting conversations. There's no one topic. He does all different kinds, but he is the person I listen to the most in terms of podcasters. And I met him just from being a guest on his show, but I liked the way he handled himself and his professionalism, and he's just a really sweet guy. I consider him a friend now. And I don't listen to his podcast because I'm his friend, because I have lots of friends with podcasts, and I've never listened to a single episode of their show.
I just told your friends under the bus like that, man.
Hey, I didn't say which ones. I will subscribe. I'll subscribe. I might even play their podcasts, but I'm not listening to them. With him, I am truly listening to his show because I find myself wanting to respond in the moment, like wishing it were a live conversation so that I could ask follow-up questions. I even asked, he had this one guest, and I said, the next time you talk to her, may I just sit in on the show so that I can pipe questions? I don't need to say anything else other than I just want to follow up on this question, and then I'll shut up again. He just does a great job, and I think he's a good example of a podcaster.
Good.
I think you guys should interview him, and he should interview you.
Hey, it's all about creating bridges. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's all about creating bridges. Because our thing is like we always want people to feel like welcome, embraced. They're having a good time. You can kind of relax. You know what I mean? You don't even have to be in professional mode. You just be you and let us do the work for you. And you just relax, drink your coffee or your wine, whatever it is you like to do when you relax, and let us just coast you. Let us just coast you. You know what I mean? We got you. That's our thing. So we definitely like to build bridges and interview people. Because it's a whole different approach. Because normally we just have discussions. Sometimes we get callers, but when we're not doing that, when we do an interview, we go into a whole different bag. Like, because Bobby's in New York, I'm in Baltimore, so we're not even in the same vicinity. Yes. That's why you might notice like a little delay in between because we're asking questions and we're trying to stay organized. We have to email each other the questions and we have to get together and plan this stuff out. There's no producer right there giving us a cue. We got to handle this in different cities.
You're the producer.
But, yeah.
He's the producer.
But it's the passion. Yeah. You know what I mean? So we
How did you two meet?
We love it.
How did the two of you connect?
It's funny. She is a natural. You know what I mean? This is her interview, and now she's. You know what I mean? It's just natural for her. You know what I mean? It's just natural for her.
But it's a valid question. I mean, you guys aren't in the same city. Like, how did you connect?
I love it. We do Craigslist because what happened was I had this platform since like 2013. So I'm not new to this. I've been doing this for a long time, and I needed a co-host. I was trying to create a panel. What I originally wanted was 2 men and 2 women. So you're getting not just one guy, but 2 guys, not just one woman, but 2 women. And you're getting different perspectives from both sexes. I thought that was very important because we cover a lot of relationship stuff. And, I did a Craigslist post, and Bobby responded, and I had a whole process. I had a person that was doing interviews. I had somebody that would interview people for me. I had a whole structure. But it was, that's how we met. And we've been kicking it ever since. That's my boy. That's my guy. That's my guy right there. We're friends for real now.